Ever wonder if you could pick up a new language, like really fast?
Faster than you ever thought possible, maybe.
Yeah, like imagine becoming fluent in, say, a week. Sounds crazy, right?
It does sound pretty ambitious, almost too good to be true.
Well, that's what we're diving into today. We've got this story, and it claims someone did just that.
A whole new language, fluent in just 7 days. What's the catch?
That's what we're going to find out. So this story, it follows this person, we'll call her Sarah. She starts off totally intimidated, terrified of even trying to speak.
Sounds familiar. We've all been there, right? That feeling of, where do I even begin?
Totally. But then something clicks for her, and bam, she's having basic conversations, even understanding movies.
Okay, that's where I get skeptical. A week. Come on. What's the secret sauce?
Well, the story lays out this framework, and it's not about magic. It's about 3 core principles: listening consistently, practicing like crazy, and really believing you can do it.
So no shortcuts, just good old-fashioned hard work and the right mindset.
Sounds like it. The story stresses that even short bursts of listening every day can make a huge difference.
Yeah, like just immersing yourself in the sounds of the language. Right, getting your ear used to it.
Exactly. And then there's the practice part. It encourages you to speak from day one, even if you're just talking to yourself in the mirror.
I can see that. Starting small, building up confidence. But did the story get into any specific techniques beyond just speaking? What made the difference?
It did. One fascinating detail is this idea of shadowing. Like, Sarah would listen to native speakers and then try to copy their pronunciation and intonation, almost like an echo.
So it's about more than just words. It's about capturing the rhythm, the music of the language, training your mouth to move in the right ways.
Exactly. But what about the mental game, that belief part? Everyone hits those moments where they feel like giving up. How did Sarah deal with that?
The story's pretty upfront about that. Sarah has those moments feeling stuck, like she's not getting anywhere. But she always circles back to why she started learning in the first place. Her goals, her motivation.
That's so crucial, having that clear purpose, that driving force, especially when it gets tough.
Totally. And the story also stresses that setbacks are normal. They're not failures, they're feedback. They help you figure out what works and what doesn't.
So it's all about adapting, refining your approach, and celebrating those small wins.
Right. And the story uses Sarah's week, day by day, to show exactly how she puts these ideas into action.
Okay, let's break it down. Day 1, what's she doing?
Day 1 is all about easing in. She watches a video with subtitles, just getting familiar with the sounds and the flow of the language.
So like dipping a toe in the water before jumping in.
Exactly. But then day 2 gets interesting.
What happens?
She jumps right into speaking, practicing basic introductions in the mirror, facing that fear head on.
That's brave. Getting over that initial hurdle of hearing your own voice speaking a new language. So as the week goes on, what else does she do?
Well, day 3, she brings in a visual element. She starts using flashcards with pictures to learn vocabulary, tying those words to images.
So engaging different parts of the brain, making those connections stronger. And then what about day 4?
Day 4 is where that shadowing technique really comes into play. She finds a short audio clip and tries to imitate the speaker perfectly, like she's their shadow.
That sounds challenging, but I can see how it'd be super effective for pronunciation. And day 5.
Day 5, she takes on a movie scene, no subtitles. She might not get every word, but she focuses on the actors' expressions, their body language, the emotions.
That's smart. Picking up on those nonverbal cues, realizing that communication is about more than just words. And day 6, does she hit any roadblocks?
She does. Day 6 is tough. She feels overwhelmed, like she's not making progress. She even thinks about giving up.
Ugh, that feeling. Everyone who's tried to learn something new has been there. So how does she get past it?
This is where her commitment to her goals comes in. She remembers why she started learning in the first place, reigniting that passion.
That's powerful. And then finally, day 7. What happens?
Day 7, she puts it all together. She tries to have a basic conversation with a native speaker, the culmination of her whole week's work.
Wow, that must have been nerve-wracking, but also exciting. How did it go?
Well, the story doesn't say she's perfectly fluent, but it emphasizes how much progress she made. She's communicating, understanding, and most importantly, feeling confident.
So it's not about hitting some magical finish line in a week, but about proving to yourself that rapid progress is possible. What's the big takeaway from Sarah's story?
The story's really challenging this idea that language learning has to be this long, drawn-out process. It suggests that a short burst of focused effort can get you real results and maybe even spark a lifelong passion.
It's about planting that seed, showing what's possible and inspiring people to take action.
Exactly. And that brings us to the big question for you. What seed will you plant? What's one tiny step you can take today to start your own language learning adventure? Back again.
I'm really curious, what from Sarah's story really stuck with you? Honestly, it's how she just went for it, you know? Not afraid to mess up, she used those mistakes to learn.
That's such a crucial thing to realize, right? So many people, they get hung up on being perfect, and it stops them from even trying.
I know, right?
Yeah.
But Sarah, she shows us that those slip-ups, they're not failures, they're like stepping stones.
Exactly. They help you get better, show you what to work on. Did the story give any tips on handling those moments when you just feel frustrated, though? Because those happen to everyone.
Yeah, it did. Sarah, when she felt overwhelmed, she'd go back to the beginning, you know, like, why did she start learning this language in the first place? What was she aiming for?
So reminding herself of her goals, that helped her keep going.
Totally. It's like when you're hiking and you're tired, thinking about quitting,
Yeah.
but then you remember that amazing view from the top and it pushes you forward. Anything else the story mentioned for those mental blocks?
It also said sometimes you just got to step away. Like, take a break from the learning for a bit.
Makes sense. Clear your head, come back refreshed.
Right. Like hitting pause on a movie, let things sink in before you keep watching. It's a marathon, not a sprint. You got to find a case that works. Speaking of which, what I found really cool was all the specific techniques this story talked about.
You mean like how Sarah went through her week, day by day? The shadowing, the flashcards, all.
Yeah. Those techniques, they're like tools in a toolbox, and they can really help you learn faster. Like that shadowing thing, it's not just passive listening, it's actively engaging with the sounds.
It's like you're not just watching someone dance, you're trying the moves yourself.
Perfect analogy. And with language, you're training your mouth to make the right sounds, your ears to hear the subtle differences. It's pretty amazing.
So it's about going deeper, getting more involved with the language. What about that visual association technique? How did Sarah use that?
It's all about making connections. She used flashcards with pictures, so instead of just memorizing lists of words, she had those visual links.
Like a picture dictionary in your head, each word tied to an image. Way more fun than just staring at words on a page.
Right. And you can do that in so many ways. Online flashcards, make your own, even just picture things in your mind. Find what clicks for you.
It's all about finding what works best, figuring out your own style. Were there any other techniques that stood out to you?
Definitely. One was this idea of spaced repetition. Sarah, she didn't just learn something once and move on. She'd keep going back to it, but spacing it out, making her brain work harder to remember.
Isn't that called spaced retrieval? I've heard it's great for memory, but how does it work for language learning?
So, say you learn a new word. Instead of looking at it once, you see it again after a few minutes, then an hour, then the next day, and so on. Every time you try to remember, that connection in your brain gets stronger.
It's like building a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. And that muscle, in this case, is your ability to remember and use new words.
Exactly. And the cool thing is, you can use this for anything, not just vocab. Grammar rules, phrases, you name it.
It's all about being active, making your brain work, not just passively soaking things in.
Absolutely. And the more active you are, the better you'll remember. You know, one more thing from Sarah's story that I think is really important is the whole idea of community.
Like connecting with other people who are learning too.
Exactly. At first, Sarah was on her own, but the story shows how connecting with others can make a huge difference. Online forums, language exchange groups, even meetups, all those things.
It makes sense. Learning a language by yourself, it can be tough, right?
Right.
But having others who get it, who support you, that can be huge.
It's like hiking with a group instead of going solo. You got people to keep you going, to celebrate the wins with.
And nowadays, there's so many ways to find those communities, online or in person.
Totally. And don't underestimate just talking to native speakers, even for a few minutes. It's amazing practice and can really boost your confidence.
So it's about finding that balance, right? The structured learning and then actually using the language in real life.
Exactly. And realizing that it's not just about memorizing words, it's about connecting with people, cultures, having new experiences.
It's about opening up your world, trying new things, and appreciating all the richness that language brings.
That's a great way to put it. Which brings up a big question. Beyond the tips and tricks, what's the real message of Sarah's story? What's the lasting impact it wants to have? Let's unpack that in the last part of our deep dive.
We've talked about all the strategies, the mindset, the community aspect, but it feels like there's something deeper here. It's not just about learning words, is it?
It's so much more than that. Sarah's story, it's not just a guide to language learning. It's about pushing your own boundaries. It's about realizing you can do things you never thought possible.
It's using language as a way to like grow as a person.
Exactly. It's about proving to yourself, hey, I can do this. And imagine how Sarah felt on that day 7, having that real conversation.
Yeah, that must have been such a rush. Like all that work paid off. And it
Right.
shows anyone, even if they're scared to try a new language, that they can do it too.
It makes it feel less scary and more like an adventure. It's like anyone can do this, you just need the right approach. So it's about making language learning feel possible for everyone.
And it's about the rewards you get beyond just speaking the language. It's about understanding different cultures, seeing the world in new ways.
It opens up so many doors, travel, jobs, even just connecting with people from all over.
For sure. And it shows that it's not about reaching some endpoint, like, okay, I'm fluent, done. It's a journey, always evolving.
So as we wrap this up, what's the one thing we want people to remember? What's that seed we're trying to plant?
Don't let fear hold you back. Find that joy in the process. Believe you can do it, because who knows what amazing things a new language might unlock for you.
I love that. That really sums it up. So to everyone listening, what's one small step you can take today? Remember, even the tiniest seed can grow into something incredible. Keep exploring, keep learning, and we'll see you on our next deep dive.